Are you in a better financial shape than you were a year ago? If not, then you're clearly doing something wrong. Many people think that you need to be lucky to be financially free, although there is some truth to it, but most people who have access to the internet are already lucky enough. The only problem they have is that they're bad with money. The moment they receive that paycheck, they make sure to spend every dime by the end of the month. As a wise man once said, it's not your salary that makes you rich, it's your spending habits. If you're 20 years old and put aside just $10 every day for your retirement, you will end up with $1.7 million when you hit 60. Imagine if you increase that number to $20 or $30 a day. You can hit that number way faster than you can imagine. But to do that, you probably have to get rid from some of your spending habits. Just by eliminating your daily Starbucks coffee or eating less out, you probably can do that. Of course, there are millions of ways of how people waste their money, but we are going to take a look at some of the most controversial ones. In this video, you are going to learn why buying a $20,000 Rolex watch is cheaper than a $200 watch, how you can use your car to become a millionaire, and why you will never get rich if you ever decide to buy a house. A car is no longer merely a tool to move from one place to another. It has turned into a status symbol. The more expensive your car is, the more money you probably make. But the truth is, a $25,000 Toyota can get the job done as good as a $200,000 Rolls-Royce. But that's not how most people waste money when buying a car. You can buy a $30,000 Toyota and waste more money than when you buy a $100,000 luxury car. When you buy a brand new car, the moment it leaves the dealership, it automatically loses 10% of its value, even though it's still brand new. Within its first year, it loses 20 up to 30% of its value. Within the next 3 or 4 years, it loses another 40 to 50% of its value. So, no matter what car you buy, as long as it's new, in 3 to 4 years, it will lose half of its value. That's the single most horrible financial decision you can ever make. Because cars easily last 10, 15 or 20 years, and there isn't much innovation in this industry every single year. A 3 or 4 year old car is not going to be different from the rest of the cars in the streets, but will save you a fortune. The average price of a brand new car in the US is almost $37,000, and Americans on average change their car every 6 to 8 years. If you buy a used car every 6 years instead of a new one and invest the rest of the money, let's say in the S&P 500, you can end up with almost $1.5 million by the time you retire. And that's if you buy the car with cash up front every time. Here, where interest rates range from 4 to 20%, your opportunity cost would be much higher. Which means you are giving up millions of dollars just to have that car. Next time, before you buy a car, ask yourself, are you ready to give up millions of dollars just to have this BMW? Number 2. Don't buy a house. A lot of people would say buying a house is one of the greatest decisions you will ever make. Unfortunately, that is not always true. If you're not going to live in that house for at least 10 years, then you should not buy a house, because you will end up wasting a fortune. Now, before you throw at me your angry comments, hear me out. When you buy a house, it's not just about the price tag. You have to pay taxes, insurance, inspection, appraisal fee, realtors, and so on. The closing cost is really high. So if you're not going to live there for at least 10 years, you will end up paying much more than if you rent. On top of that, when you take a mortgage, in the first 5 or even 10 years, you usually pay the interest and then gradually move to pay the principal. So if you take a mortgage and just live there for 5 years, you will be paying interest to the bank for loaning you that money, instead of paying rent, for example. Mortgage only makes sense if you intend to own that property for 20 or 30 years. But yet, in this radically changing economy we live in, it doesn't make sense to tie yourself to one place. That's why so many people who take mortgages decide to sell that property in less than a decade and end up paying a fortune in closing cost. Just imagine if you have invested that money instead in a mutual fund, for example. You could have ended up with hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions. Number 3. The sunk cost fallacy. Confused? Me too when I heard about it for the first time. Since you have watched this video, you're now financially educated, and I assume you're not going to borrow money to buy a brand new BMW, because that is financially irresponsible. But let's say you have already borrowed money to buy your allegedly dream car, but you don't use it much because you work from home and only need a ride once or twice a week, but you still have to make your monthly payments. The rational decision would be to sell that car and pay off your debts, since you don't need that car. But since you have already paid a portion of that car, you don't want your previous investments to go to waste, so you keep the car. It's like when you purchase a ticket to a movie but then find out that the movie is boring. You still keep watching it because you don't want your money to be wasted. And that is known as the sunk cost fallacy, a desire not to see your past investments to go to waste. But you have already purchased the ticket. You cannot recover that. Now, you should decide what is the best outcome for your future and not what outcome will justify your previous spendings. Because the investment is gone, it's sunk. Or take another example. Some people remain in failing relationships because they have already invested too much to leave, although the logical thing would be to leave. Number 4. Cheap watches. To most people, buying a $20,000 Rolex watch is a waste of money because a $200 watch can get the job done as good as a Rolex watch. But the reality is, when you buy a regular watch, it might last you a year or two and then you will throw it away and get a new one, or just stop wearing a watch like I do. On the other side, when it comes to luxury brands like Rolex or Patek Philippe, these companies make sure that there is a limited number of their products in the market, which keeps driving the price higher over time. In fact, if they end up with unsold inventory, they will destroy it to keep the status quo. So if you buy a Rolex watch where only a limited number of them were ever made, the value of your watch will only grow as time goes by. You will be able to sell it for the same amount you bought it for, if not higher. Whereas if you buy a $300 watch, you will throw it away once you get bored of it, because there is no other use to it. Finally, impulse buying. How often do you find yourself buying things you didn't plan to buy? You went to get yourself a pair of shoes, but you ended up buying a new t-shirt, a new pair of jeans, and whatever else was there on sale. But when impulse buying turns into a habit, you are financially screwed, because no matter how much money you make, you will waste it on stuff you don't need. Some people even end up wasting fortunes on expensive things such as cars or phones, and then question themselves a few days later, why on earth did I buy this? If there is something you feel excited to buy, especially if it's something expensive, sleep on it. Give yourself at least a day or two to think about it. Once you calm down, then you should decide whether you should buy it or not. That brand new iPhone or BMW will always be there in the store, and if someone else buys it, there will always be more as long as there is demand. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you did, give this video a thumbs up, and if you're new around here, then subscribe and turn on your notifications. We're trying our best to make great videos for you and hopefully help you to achieve your financial goals. Thanks for watching, and until next time.